Welcome back to another episode of Red Tinted Glasses. And Callum, I think this is one we feared the most having to do, a 4-0 defeat.
I'm not surprised we got to do it. No, but it still doesn't make it any more fun. Sorry, I should say. Oh no, I'm not looking forward to this. But let's get into things, shall we?
Now, I suppose Monday, when we're recording this, what more pleasant to do than review a 4-0 defeat at the hands of your biggest rivals? As always, we start with our one-word summary. What's your word? Are you going to keep it clean this week?
I'm keeping it clean, no expletives for once. Pathetic though. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. What about you?
Well, I'll let you go into further detail on that in a minute, but mine is effortless. Because not only was it was it effortless for Rangers in terms of the scoreline and result, but it was pretty effortless for us as well in terms of our performance.
Clever. I like it. Yeah,
See what
nice.
I did there?
I
This is what
know.
happens when
Nice.
you get too much time to spend in the shower and think of your one word before the podcast.
I know, mulling over it too much. But yeah, no, honestly, pathetic, effortless. Yeah, I think they're probably quite nice given how bad it was. And I've gone with pathetic just because it was just this showing. It was just, yeah, as you said, effortless from us. Nobody seemed bothered. It was an abysmal game for us. The Rangers didn't even have to sort of go up too many gears. That's how
Mm-hmm.
pathetic we were. And just all of it was just an absolute shambles. That could be another one. We could go on, couldn't we?
Yeah, I think that's this game being so close to Christmas as well. My family are all supporters of Rangers, and I'm the only one that's not. So I've now lost Christmas bragging rights, and I'm sure they won't let me forget that one on Christmas Day. So that'll just be fantastic. But I suppose when we signed up to doing podcasts, we kind of knew we'd get the bad with the good, and I suppose we should try and dissect the game as best we can. I suppose maybe it's a bit therapeutic for us as well in a weird sort of way, getting the frustrations vented out. So I suppose we should look at the starting lineup. The news broke on Friday that not only is Ross McCrory missing this game, obviously being ineligible, but his fellow under-21 teammates Connor McLennan and Lewis Ferguson would have to self-isolate due to a COVID outbreak amongst the Scotland under-21 squads. Bit poor from the SFA.
Yeah, I also don't know the ins and outs of how it's happened, but I suppose when there's an international break, especially right now, there is always that risk with players that come from different clubs going against different countries and traveling and things. So I don't know what they could have done to maybe tighten things up a little, but it's just very annoying that it's us that gets. Well, I suppose it's not just us, but just from a
Mm.
selfish point of view, it's us that, and it happens to be two of our best players, if not the
Mm-hmm.
two best, as well as Conor McLennan as well, who's been pretty decent. So yeah, not good at all, not happy, and it just made things even harder as if it wasn't difficult enough already.
Yeah, I think when we knew we'd be losing McCrory for this game anyway, but then when you lose your other starting midfielder in Lewis Ferguson, and I think something we discussed in the preview episode was the likelihood of McLennan starting. Well, in our opinion, anyway. Um, you've just suddenly lost three names off your team sheet, and not only for Sunday's game, but we now lose them for midweek against Hamilton and then the cup game against St Mirren. And based on those who came in, it's not really positive.
No, not at all. We did say it before. Imagine something happens, we just end up with Funso Ojo, and we jinxed it. And that's exactly what happened. I don't think too much blame could be put on Greg Lee, I guess. Not a midfielder by trade, obviously, but
Mm-hmm.
sort of maybe didn't do much favours. But Funso Ojo, he's just not up to scratch. I think if it wasn't clear before, then it really wasn't now, and it really is now that he's not up to scratch. And definitely could have been doing with a fit Dylan McGeoch or a fully fit Dean Campbell in there, but not to
Mm-hmm.
be.
Yeah, and I think what you've just said there leads on. We did ask the followers on our Twitter page at RTG_podcast, if you had any questions or topics for us to discuss. And I really did enjoy this question from Grant Heath. If Ojo and Logan are the answer, what is the question?
I'm going to go with not good enough to play for Aberdeen, or should never start, or who should never start a game for Aberdeen again? Who's not good enough for Aberdeen? Something along those lines.
Yeah, I mean the possibilities of the question are endless. Name the two biggest downgrades in our squad.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. That's like it could go on. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the question, even you and Stuart also asked he asked why is a player that is beating Lionel Messi not playing for us? But as a tweet that amused me last night from Car Handle was £800,000 spent to get a guy a British passport. What has Ronald Hernandez got to do to get into the starting 11? He was finally freed, Callum. He
I
got
know.
minutes, but he's not starting.
I know. He's got to start midweek. You'd surely have to think. Shea Logan just people saying not only he's a player that has beat Messi not playing, but he's behind a plumber. Let's be honest. That's what he's going to be doing soon. So it's just it's I don't know what he's got to do to start, and hopefully I'm hoping midweek he does come in and free the main man. It just seems so odd, and it only seems to get more and more odd. In fact, he would have even been on the bench if he had all the players available. Who knows? Because in recent times he hasn't
Mm-hmm.
even been there. So I'm hoping little Ronnie. We're not even thinking. We don't even know if he's good enough at all because we've just not seen him enough. That's
Yeah,
the thing. So hopefully we can see that and then finally make a judgment on it. Fingers crossed.
yeah, we've only really seen him. Well, played first game of the season, then got hooked for no real justification, in my opinion, against St Johnstone at half time. And since then, he's just been in the wilderness. So, why not keep the legs fresh for the cup game coming up after Hamilton as well? But back to yesterday. Unfortunately, we did say in the preview it'd be a daunting task, and it really did prove that way. When we got into half time at 2-0, you kind of thought, okay, right, let's just see. I was texting Keith and said, we would almost take 2-0 at full time, but we just capitulated in the first 10 minutes of the second half, which was pretty inexcusable.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know what had been said at halftime because I don't know how we somehow got worse and then capitulated even more. Sort of, we held out the first 15 minutes of the first game. And I thought, first half, sorry. I thought we've lasted longer than I thought in that. And if you think going into the second half, maybe it can hold out for 10, 15 minutes, don't concede a third goal. Then maybe you've got a chance, nick another goal, get back into things. No, no, no. We had other ideas, let me tell you. Don't know what happened there. Don't even know what he could possibly have said at halftime to make it even worse.
It's funny, I actually said to Brune pre-match, I said, hopefully we can keep it tight the first 15 minutes and then build on that. He turns to me as Ryan Kent puts Rangers 1-0 up. He says, well, we lasted 14 minutes and 30 seconds. We were close enough, but yeah, the way Ryan Kent skips past Ojo like he wasn't there. Some people are trying to apportion a bit of blame to Greg Lee that he could have closed him down, but at the end of the day, the deflection does Joe Lewis no favours in goal. But the way Ryan Kent was allowed to get in on goals, probably something we want to look at.
So easy, and I think if even one of McCrory or Ferguson's in there, that doesn't happen. One of them will probably just be professional enough to just take him out. Let's be honest. If that's Ferguson or McCrory, put it this way: not both the ball and Kent's getting back past them. Either one or
Yeah.
the other.
Mm-hmm.
And Ojo was just so easy. It's just so frustrating. And he got the shot off, obviously, and I just say deflection didn't help Joe much at all. It's just so
Yeah,
painful.
and then Ojo probably finds himself lucky not to be conceding a penalty,
Mm-hmm.
which is quite surprising with Rangers at Ibrox and penalties. But I suppose we'll come to that later because they did get one in the second half. But
Mm-hmm.
they did find a second goal, and again, questions have got to be asked around the Aberdeen defence. Andy Considine probably too much boogieing with the Scotland squad because, let's be honest, he had a pretty poor performance yesterday.
Yeah, he was a bit all over the place, let's be honest. Positionally, and giving away the penalty, I mean, he does it every week, let's be honest. He loves a grapple in the box. I think
And to
finally.
be honest, on that point as well, he could have easily given away a second one
Mm-hmm.
as well on Balogun again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was just fine. It's finally come up against someone who's smart enough to throw themselves down. Okay, it wasn't the most Stonewall penalties, and he went down a
Mm.
bit soft. But at the same time, it's so stupid to give them the opportunity to do that. And it's just about time that someone blooming punished him for it. He does it every week, and then positionally, and then another time in the second half, try to shield out the ball, and the ball's just never going to get there at all. I think he must have just been absolutely hammered on the Scotland international break and just hungover, because it wasn't like him really at all. I'm just very disappointed as a Considine fan, shall we say.
But I think I actually saw a fair point someone made. Considine put in a performance that had that been Ash Taylor,
Mm-hmm.
he would have been hounded out the club probably based on that performance and crucified for it. But yet because it's Considine, there didn't seem to be much uproar based on that performance.
Yeah, that's true. I think Ash Taylor, I think any little tiny mistake he makes, sometimes they are quite big, but any tiny one he does get sort of crucified for. But yeah, I think if that's the man wearing number 14 that's making those kind of errors, then he would be absolutely hounded. But you get that sort of luxury when you're Andy Considine, but Ash Taylor is not granted that sort of luxury.
No, that's true. And I've not brought myself to watch the highlights back. I don't know about you, probably similar. But do you think Joe Lewis could have done better at the second goal? I kind of felt he maybe could.
I thought possibly he could. It wasn't great. It wasn't great goal. He didn't cover himself in glory. I've not watched the highlights back. To say I was paying attention after the second goal went in would probably be usefully as well. But I think Joe maybe didn't cover himself in glory, but at the same time, how lucky are they with those? Yeah, we'll blame it on luck, will we?
Mm. Yeah, I saw a few people maybe claiming there was a bit of a deflection, but like I said, probably similar to you, I kind of stopped paying attention at 2-0 because it was inevitable what else was to come, really. And it's one of our regular listeners, viewers of the show, Jonathan Main, actually tweeted, said, 2 deflected goals, when's the penalty coming? And I think he did so about a minute before the penalty came, so well done on that, Jonathan. But yeah, we can have no complaints on that penalty, and kind of just summed up the performances we've already touched on.
Yeah, no complaints at all. For once, a penalty that Rangers got against us, I'm just like, yeah, that's fair enough. Absolute penalty. I hope Jonathan put a bet on. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, but after it went 4-0, the game just kind of petered out. Really, there was no real rhythm to it. Rangers made their changes resting, I suppose, ahead of the Europa League game. We made our changes ahead of a crucial game against Hamilton. Also important. But one thing I suppose we should be speaking of is young Ryan Duncan making his first team debut. I know there's a lot of questions around Derek McInnes not giving youth players game time. We can't really accredit Ryan's appearance to that. Kind of his hand was forced with the amount of youngsters on the bench, but nevertheless, good to see products of the youth academy coming through and getting game time.
Yeah, it's still nice to see, regardless of obviously. It's probably one he would like to forget, but at the same time, you'll never forget your debut. So good on him. It's good to see a 16-year-old not only involved but coming on, and hopefully he'll have a bright future. Fingers crossed. We need all the help we can get.
Yeah, and I suppose also another youth product getting game time. Good to see Dean Campbell back in midfield. Obviously not long back in training, but given our injuries and now COVID suspensions, shall we call them, good to get minutes in Dean Campbell's legs.
Yeah, definitely think he'll be all the better for it, sort of about 20 minutes or whatever it was. Fingers crossed he'll maybe be fit enough to start. Probably not the full game on Wednesday, but I'm hoping if we can get sort of 45 minutes, an hour out of him, hopefully be in a comfortable position, and then take him off, get him, build up that match sharpness. Fingers crossed, because Lord knows we need another centre mid in there right now. And whether it's for Ojo, who knows? We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I've actually got some comments on the Hamilton game to come, but do you feel there was, outside of Ryan Hedges, any positives to take from Aberdeen's perspective yesterday?
The fact it was only 4, maybe. Other than that, Ryan Hedges, the shining light, and I said on Twitter that there's only so much one man can do when he's just surrounded by utter dross. But yeah, he was one bright spark. Other than the fact it's only 4, that is literally the only positive I can take. Here's hoping he can dig us out of a hole on Wednesday.
Yeah, here's hoping he can do that for us. But one thing we did say in the preview episode was we needed to be clinical. I think it's fair to say in the first half, we created a lot more chances, and I think using the term chances maybe loosely, than we expected. But certainly the Ryan Hedges one just before half time, where he doesn't even, Goldson the shot hits Goldson. I think we could have been a bit more clinical. Cosgrove obviously got in behind a few times, and it just showed that Rangers weren't there for the taking. When we got in behind, we certainly caused them problems with their high line, but as was our fear in our preview, we just weren't clinical enough when these chances arose.
Seems to be the story of our season so far, not being clinical. Just, maybe Scotty Wright was there then after all the slander he's got, and, he's got a finishing touch. Maybe he would have been the man to put them away, but maybe that's just clutching at straws. It's frustrating when we do get those chances in such big games. You do need to take them. And the fact, we seem to always get our shots blocked at the very last minute. We sometimes don't even take the chance to even take the chance, if that makes sense. It's just blocked and nothing comes of it, and it's not even clear cut. Just so frustrating. I don't know what they're working on in training. And speaking of what they're working on in training, I'm just going to say this now, set pieces. Oh my word, how bad are we at them?
Yeah, and when I tweeted out yesterday that I thought Hedges was our particular, bright spark, and someone replied, I thought Matty Kennedy was one of our better players. I mean, I don't know if we were watching the same game, but speaking on set pieces, Matty Kennedy's delivery was terrible. I mean, I don't know if he's just struggling on the left, left side, he prefers to be on the right, but even when he moved to the right, you want your wing backs to be delivering some quality to your strikers. And even when we get the chance to do that, but it was very painful viewing all round. But yes, set pieces and crosses into the box in particular were not great.
No, definitely. And good point you make about Matty Kennedy. That man, I think his left leg's just for show. He wouldn't even play the ball down the line with his left foot, let alone put in a cross. That's just so frustrating. I think
it's like Ryan Hedges' right foot being for show.
Exactly. I think the sooner we get him back across to the right-hand side, the better, so he can actually deliver a ball in the box, hopefully. But, we'll see what happens. But the set piece is just absolutely woeful. Every single one of them. I can't think of one that was actually any use. So it's just
Huge
so
set piece
frustrating.
goal on Wednesday.
I know, it would be typical, wouldn't it? Hopefully Big Tommy Hoban or someone we can trust will come up with them. But it's just so frustrating. In games like this, you sort of... chances maybe not coming too thick and fast. And you think a set piece, that's a good chance to maybe create something, maybe nick something, a consolation goal at least. But no, it wasn't to be.
No. One thing Ian at AFC 42 asked was kind of based around our tactics. I think he wants to discuss the tactics, so we'll come on to that. And, did we sit too deep? That's, again, something we touched on in the preview show. And he also mentioned Ryan Edmondson kind of being posted missing during the game. I've seen a few tweets about that saying, if I hadn't read the team sheet, I wouldn't have known Ryan Edmondson was playing. And I know you made a good comment about our team sheet and we got off to a bad start when we couldn't even spell Dean Campbell's name right.
Yeah, I know. It was never going to go well, was it, when you can't even spell a name like Campbell, right? But I suppose, Edmondson wasn't really, didn't really was too involved, shall we say. But at the same time, in a game like that, you're probably pinning hopes on a 19-year-old to do something that's never going to happen. And I don't think it's fair for him to be singled out, in all honesty, considering there's about, probably 9 other empty shirts there. Maybe Ryan well, if you could, Edmondson's an empty shirt, 9 other ones, and there's just Ryan Hedges. That's about it. So I think a bit harsh on him, but what can you do, I suppose. And playing in a partnership that he's not used to as well with Sam Cosgrove maybe didn't help. But maybe I'm just making excuses.
In terms of the point Ian asked about, sitting too deep, that's one thing we discussed on the preview episode, where it might have been kind of accepted given the changes we were likely to make. But I think if we were going to sit in, we shouldn't be collapsing and making the amount of mistakes that seem to be, especially defensively. So I think that was the biggest frustration. But tactically, I didn't really know what our tactics were yesterday. Was it just hope to keep the score down?
I know, that's what it seemed like. I honestly couldn't tell you. I think if you sit in a game like that, you've got to make sure defensively you're actually, on top of your game. Didn't happen, and you still have to offer a threat on the break, which I suppose in the first half we did sometimes see, as you said, getting in behind, but just not clinical enough. Shock horror. But especially in the second half, came out in the second half, I have no idea what the plan was for that. Was it to just try limit things to 2,
Yeah.
or I don't know.
Well, if it was, it just went straight out the window in the first 8 minutes, which is just so poor from players as well. Just it, as fans watching, obviously we can't go to the game, which I appreciated your tweet saying should we all leave early now. But it's similar. I watched View on the Terrace on Friday night, and they kind of had a feature on the current situation where fans are tuning in on streams or watching on TV, and they're kind of feeling a bit disillusioned with the game because it's easy just to switch off the laptop, switch off the TV, walk away when the game's on, and do other tasks instead. And I said to you before we recorded this episode that I'm not as angry as I should have been at losing 4-0 to Rangers, probably because I've not forked out on a bus, a ticket, and had the day out that follows surrounding the football. But nevertheless, seeing the performance still frustrates.
Yeah,
And
sorry, carry on.
Sorry, and I was just going to say, I think when you look at kind of Aberdeen in big games, we've had the Hamilton defeat recently as well. Do you think, I saw something, kind of online, it's just something to pick your brains on. Do you think we kind of struggle to get motivated for these big games without a crowd, or do you think the manager's struggling to motivate the group of players? Because that's worrying.
I would definitely say possibly on the manager's side, given how they came out in the second half. But it's definitely worrying. Obviously, I mean, even at Ibrox, it would be a full crowd, obviously mainly Rangers, but that sort of gives you a bit of a lift, and then a good away crowd it would have been as well, probably sold out. And it's just, they just seem not up for games like that. It is really worrying. But you make a great point about being like sort of like not sort of the disillusioned. I think the word you said. My dad went through to. Just left the room at 2-0, and I came through at full time, told him it was 4-0. He's like, "Oh, was it?" Just had no clue what was going on.
Yeah.
But can you really blame people when that sort of thing's happening? And like it was there, it was on in the living room, but was I paying attention to it after the second goal went in? Not really that much. Not great.
No.
Probably not great for the podcast sort of thing. But at the same time, can you blame anyone for not being not tuning in and not being up for it? It's just so difficult. But as you say, I did feel a bit like. So it was just like pathetic. I'm not angry or anything really, just because at the same time didn't have to go down. I suppose that's at least one thing. As you said, didn't fork out the money, but I definitely would have left as soon as that second goal went in. Let's be honest.
I'd have probably given myself till half time, and as soon as the third went in, I would have gone back to the bus, similar to last season's game. We won't go into that too much, but I think as well, fans are frustrated when your team loses 4-0, understandably. But I think what becomes even more frustrating is when the manager comes out and he says the players put in a great amount of effort. The fans aren't seeing that, so is he seeing something different to us?
Also, it doesn't matter if they put in a great amount of effort. You could have put out the under 16s, you could have put out the under 18s, whatever, just Ryan Duncan, Calvin Ramsey, all of them, and they would have put in the same amount of effort, if not more, because they actually had sort of, there's pride at stake, sort of kind of thing. But that didn't seem the case yesterday at all.
Yeah.
The effort, like we said, didn't seem to. There's been a couple of videos going around where they came out at halftime laughing and joking as if they just didn't care what was happening. Obviously, they probably don't care as much as fans are, but it's their jobs. They should be up for it.
Yeah.
And if anyone should be motivating them, it's the manager. And for him to say, like, oh, put in a great amount of effort, etc., I don't think that's acceptable in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point you make. Regardless of having, okay, we had the amount of starters that we did out of the team, those players that are on the fringes of the first team should be chomping at the bit to go in and take their chance to show why they should be ahead of the likes of Ferguson, McLennan. I'm not obviously saying that Funzo Ojo is ahead of Lewis Ferguson because that's just silly, but these sort of players should be fighting for their chance to get into the starting 11 and show why they should be featuring regularly. But I don't feel that any of them have done so. And I think you make a good point. If you chucked in the likes of the 16s, 18s, obviously that would have just been a crazy idea to do. But you make a good point. They've got nothing to lose, nothing to fear, and potentially would have shown more effort and desire than some of the performances we saw yesterday.
Yeah, definitely. Like Funso Ojo one especially, that's one you're looking at. McKeoch's out, Campbell sort of just getting back to fitness. Those two out for the next couple of games. I think, okay, this is my chance. I'll prove what I'm worth. I've got this opportunity, and then maybe I'll stay in when those players comes back. not a chance of that happening after that
Okay.
Messrs. Funso Ojo. The Belgian polo did not turn up, shall we say, but it is really frustrating, guys like that. And then Matty Kennedy as well, there will be competition when McLennan's back and Hayes is back for him. I mean, he just didn't turn up either. Really,
Mhm.
really, really poor. And I suppose Ryan Edmondson to an extent as well.
Yeah, and I suppose the thing is as well for the likes of the midfielders is that they don't have the competition for the next two games, knowing that these players are going to be out. And I suppose it's kind of like what Logan had for years at right back. He had no competition and just got too comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But this is an interesting point. I saw on Twitter, oh, we're signing another midfielder. We don't need another midfielder. Where are they all now? But it begs the question, was our strength in depth really as strong as we thought a few weeks back?
I think, well, I suppose there's a lot of players out, so you can't really count for that. But at the same time, it is like sort of, I thought we were just in a great place. No matter what, a couple of injuries, we'd be all right. No,
Mm.
no, no. I was like, Craig Bryson, where are you? Come back. Liam Burt, do you fancy signing up?
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, no. We could have been doing with Craig Bryson in there. Would have been probably injured, but it's just, I think when that sort of amount of injuries, it's obviously not going to be great. But at the same time, you think for sort of thought Funso Ojo, he's got a lot to prove. He'll be fine. He should not great, but you'd think he would have done better than that. And the fact it just shows that there is not as much depth as we thought. And guys like Logan, maybe even Taylor, sort of Funso Ojo, Greg Lee, definitely not centre mid, maybe not up to scratch.
Yeah, and I feel a bit sorry for Greg Lee in a
Mm.
sense. Yesterday, he was thrown into a position that he's clearly not comfortable in playing, but it's where we needed him to fill in. And fair play to him for doing it, but it did show that he's definitely suited to being a defender, not a midfielder. Um, and hopefully, if he does have to fill in midfield in the next couple of games, I suppose you're not playing the quality of Rangers. No disrespect to the likes of Hamilton and St Mirren, who are upcoming opposition, but he maybe gets an easier time in those games.
Well, I hope so. We saw it in his first battle club when he played Motherwell. He did, to be fair, he did boss it in midfield. Him and Zach Viner, the most unlikely partnership ever.
Yeah.
But then against Celtic, when he did have to play there, he did come a cropper, which you probably saw this time as well. So hopefully, he can sort of, and I suppose with the experience of being back in from the start at Aberdeen and sort of being up to speed now a bit more, maybe he will get better, and hopefully he can. But probably who it's alongside, we'll never know. Well, we will know on Wednesday, but right now I'm thinking, will he throw in Dean Campbell? Will Funso Ojo be booted and you'll go with Lee alongside him? Who knows?
Well, I suppose we should look ahead to Wednesday's game, leave the disappointment of Sunday behind. Is Wednesday's game the perfect game for us to bounce back in?
I think so. You'd like to think we'd still have enough about us to win. Maybe not so comfortably as we'd like, or we could have, given with all the players that are missing in. But you'd think we have enough about us. Definitely going forward. Ryan Hedges, again looking at him, and definitely defensively shouldn't be tested as much. But it is Aberdeen. We could just collapse at the back once again. So I think we'll probably come through it, but we'll see what happens. What about you? What do you think?
Um, I've been humming and haying on this, given that our away form Sunday aside has been exceptional. I think was it Crocker's stat during the game when he said the 4 goals we've conceded in Sunday's game was the same amount that we'd conceded in all our away games domestically in 2020. So if that was right, if I've remembered that right, as shows I've not been paying that much attention, but just shows we do perform better away from home. But my biggest concern for Wednesday is the plastic pitch. Now, this isn't like I hate plastic pitches campaign before any of those, if any Hamilton or Livingston fans are tuning into this or, come at us for that. It's more surrounding the likes of Dean Campbell, who you've said could feature. I can't remember. Was it a knee injury he had?
Metatarsal, wherever that is.
Is that not the famous Wayne Rooney injury? So it could be that Dean's not risked on plastic. Similar with Scott Wright, if he's fit again for Wednesday. We're looking at Johnny Hayes. Obviously, wasn't fit, but there's no word if he's going to be back for Wednesday. You're looking at these players that have had niggling injuries that are working their way back to fitness, would McInnes be prepared to risk them on a plastic pitch? And then you've got Tommy Hoban, who can't play 3 games in a week. He
Yep.
did play on plastic in Stavanger, but again, with the cup game in mind on Saturday, do we get 90 minutes out of Tommy Hoban? So I'm confident in terms that we should be able to get a result. But I'm also looking at some of these players that could have come into Wednesday's game, maybe not so because we're away from home.
Yep, and you're also probably thinking, okay, Tommy Hoban, maybe if he doesn't play 3 games in a week, especially on a plastic pitch, but then who have you got to bring in? Made of glass, sorry, Mikey Devlin. So you're probably not going to want to bring him on a plastic pitch either. So it does
Ronald
sort of,
Hernandez.
exactly. So maybe we will see Ronald. So fingers crossed. But yeah, it's not a great game to be going into in terms of that sense. I don't know how bad Niall McGinn is, but if he's fit, they're not going to want to bring him back in on that sort of pitch as well, especially being away international duty as well. So it's not filling me with confidence.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, not the best surface to be coming back onto. But fingers crossed, Mr. McInnes will maybe have a master stroke and we'll see what happens. I say that with not much confidence.
It is Derek McInnes we're speaking about, so don't hold your hopes. But I think on the Niall McGinn point, I think it's 3 weeks he's out for. I think it was Martin Stone replied to my tweet about him being injured, and I think it was 3 weeks he said it was. But if Hoban doesn't play, you could, I suppose, revert Considine into centre half with Taylor and drop Greg Lee into wing back or left back if you went for a back 4.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose then you've got Shea Logan at right back or Ronald Hernandez, as we've spoken about, as options on right back. But then if you're dropping Greg Lee back into midfield, into defence, who do you then play alongside Ojo in midfield if Campbell can't play on the plastic because you want to protect him? Because I'm sure there's something about the plastic pitch that Hamilton has got is different from the plastic pitch that Kilmarnock have got, and it affects the muscles and injuries in a different way. So that would be great for us.
Yeah, it's not ideal. Could you imagine if we bring Campbell in or someone, Devlin back in and they play on the plastic pitch and they're out again for a couple of months? It would be an absolute disaster. Especially then we'd play St Mirren after with genuinely just one centre mid, and it would be even worse.
Yeah. I wonder what if the youth team have got their boots ready for Wednesday instead.
So then you're probably looking at guys like Barron out on loan. So you can't play him. Vertanen out on loan. So those would be the two naturally would normally step up if they didn't have to go out on loan. So I don't know.
I'm sure we could recall them.
Possibly, yeah. I don't know.
Hopefully there's a recall option there. Hopefully we've not been that silly to let them go without that.
I know, but it wouldn't surprise me.
So, that's kind of the concern from the tombola point of view, shall we call it, because who knows what the tombola will produce for a starting 11. But in terms of Hamilton, obviously they're in a dire run of form just now. Their only win in recent weeks has come against Albion Rovers, and that's just because Albion Rovers couldn't field a team. I watched Sports Scene at the weekend purely just to kind of, and I didn't really want to watch the Hamilton game, but it was just to kind of get an idea of what they would be like ahead of Wednesday. But from the highlights, they seem to like to get a lot of balls into the box. You'd like to think we should be able to deal with that, but could be a threat.
Fingers crossed, but just that defence. Sometimes I'm like, okay, everything will be fine, but sometimes it doesn't fill me with confidence. And they do have big physical strikers, Ogumpo, a few others. They do have the potential to ruffle some feathers. David Templeton, decent player as well, or probably got a decent delivery on him too if he's fit. Hopefully we could be able to sort of silence them. Does that make sense? I don't have a clue. But yeah, I just nothing about Aberdeen right now just fills me with confidence. I'm just a bit sceptical on every single little thing, even against Hamilton.
Well, there's always something about Hamilton away on a midweek that just fills me with dread. Our record at Hamilton used to be pretty poor. I know we've turned results around recently. Curtis Main obviously started that revival with the 3-0 away win last time. I did actually say to Bruno on Sunday, so that's Curtis Main getting his minutes ahead of his midweek goal. So here's hoping. But yeah, there is that little fear inside of me because there is that unknown on the pitch. But what I did notice is that when Dundee United actually decided they wanted to play football, well, it did take them to go 1-0 down to do that, a little bit of directness and running at Hamilton caused problems. We saw that when Hamilton came to Pittodrie the other month. So hopefully we can replicate that. But obviously my concern is we're missing pace out of the team.
Mm-hmm.
Ferguson and McCrory kind of provide that driving from midfield. You've got Hayes and Scott Wright injured currently. We don't know if they're going to play on Wednesday. So that's a bit concerning that we've kind of lost pace. And I think we saw that at times on Sunday.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's at that stage, that's where you turn to Ryan Hedges. So if he can bring out that sort of performance as he did at the weekend, and hopefully a couple others around him would be able to too, then maybe that's where we're looking to guys like Matty Kennedy too. If he finds his left leg, that would be helpful. And that's probably, you're looking at the direct runners there, obviously without Scott Wright. Just makes me so sad the fact he's not fit. I've just been loving him this season. It's been great. But,
I just hope for Scott Wright though it's not a serious injury, because like you said, for a player that has suffered from injuries like he has through his career, it's been great to see him kind of revive into a good run of form. So it would be disappointing if he is out for a long period of time.
Yeah, it would be a huge setback. Hopefully it is nothing more than maybe a week or a couple of weeks. For his confidence as well, that would be so frustrating to maybe come back in not having played, regular, and maybe confidence would be a bit shot. And his finishing, maybe he might, maybe that'll take a bit of a beating. But fingers crossed, it's not too long and he can come back in and get back firing, because that's, I think, what Aberdeen need right now.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed we can get back to winning ways on Wednesday night against Hamilton, and keep our third place in the league. Your third place trophy still sitting nicely there.
I don't know where it's gone, actually.
We've misplaced it after a poor performance.
That's how important it is.
Yeah, exactly. But I suppose we should think of how we normally end the show on our one-word assessment in terms of the next game. So what's your one word ahead of Wednesday?
I'm a bit worried. If we don't beat Hamilton, then...
See what a defeat does to the optimism of the support.
Yeah, no, things are really in the muck if we don't beat Hamilton. So I'm going to go with worried. How about you? What's yours?
Mine was hopeful. Hopeful that we can get a better performance. But it can't get much worse, to be honest. But yeah, I'm hopeful that the players will realise that yesterday wasn't good enough and it needs to be better. And it's, in a way, it's kind of the perfect opposition to get a reaction against, a defence that's been leaking goals. Hopefully can inspire confidence in our team as well. I think the worst thing for us though would be to go 1-0 down, but let's hope we don't come across that.
Yeah, confidence would just be absolutely shot. If we go 1-0 down, I've got just no belief that we'll come back into it. So here's hoping that doesn't happen.
See, hopeful.
Oh yeah, there you go, big thinker.
Yeah, and I just want to end the show on a slightly different note. It's not actually in the notes, Calum, so this might catch you a bit off guard. Nothing to worry about though, but I just want to say, it's been 3 months, I've noticed, since we've started doing these podcasts. We're 12 listens away from 900 on Spotify, Anchor, Podbean, and we've racked up 3,782 views on YouTube. Pretty impressive going so far for this will be episode 19, I believe.
I didn't realise it had been 3 months. Wow, yeah, it's pretty good going. I'm, having fun. Not when we lose. It's never fun to talk about, but it's a bit of therapy, so that's at least something. But yeah, thank you very much, everyone, for all the support, whether you tune in, listen, don't want to see ugly mugs, or if you do watch on the YouTube, and if you are watching the YouTube and you're not subscribed already, then do so. Nice plug.
Yeah, there's 68 of you so far subscribed to the YouTube channel. 442 of you have followed us on Twitter at RTG_podcasts. It's great to have all the support that we've received. And as you know, Callum, I think you'll agree, when I first approached you to do this, it was a bit of a daunting experience. And, we've kind of developed, hopefully improved as well. But I think one thing you touch on there is how therapeutic this kind of is for the both of us. It's great to be able to vent our feelings to each other. In these times, we're doing it over Zoom calls, and it's a way of just kind of getting our feelings out there to those who want to listen. Hopefully, it's enjoyable for everyone that's been tuning in. I was looking at the stats, Callum, on Anchor as well. We've got regular listeners in Ireland, Australia, obviously England and Scotland, America even, but Atlanta, Georgia's not been there. Dave Cormack, where are you? Maybe you're watching though. Hi if you are.
That's a good point. Maybe he is, but that's pretty cool to see, isn't it?
Yeah, even Vietnam as well. We're exploring the Asian market.
Wow, I wonder if this is because I'm really hoping it's not because we're listed as American football on Spotify, and it still won't change for some reason.
Yeah, for whatever reason. But what I do want to say is, obviously, it is a tough time just now for a lot of people, with the mental health, working from home, the isolation the COVID's bringing, and we hope that this podcast is bringing a bit of light relief to those of you that are tuning in regularly. And if you ever feel you need to speak to somebody, myself and Callum, our Twitter names are above our videos if you're watching on YouTube. The DMs are open, so feel free to give us a shout if you need someone to speak to. Callum, I know it's something you're quite a big advocate of, mental health, so I'm sure you'd be kind of follow that up as well.
Yeah, definitely, 100% agree. And also, if you don't want to message directly for Twitter, you can message us on the RTG_podcast on Twitter as well. But I think, yeah, that's a wonderful note to leave on. I think a nice little spin on things.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll have some positive mental health energy on Wednesday when we get back to watching Aberdeen again. But who knows? And just want to say thanks again for listening and watching.
Yep, thank you all.